Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat episode 342, featuring a look at the game Might and Magic 7 for Blood and Honor. Now this game came out a year after Might and Magic 6, The Mandate of Heaven, groundbreaking game you might remember that I reviewed a while back. I'll post a link to that in case you missed it. And to this day there's debate about whether 7 is better than 6 or 6 is better than 7. Was it outdated on arrival? And what about that Arcomage, a collectible card game built into it? Anyway, a lot of great stuff to cover here, so without further ado, here is Might and Magic 7. And here we go, folks, with Might and Magic 7 for Blood and Honor. One of the classics, I would say, of the late 90s, early 2000s. At the time this was released in 1999, it got high to low high reviews, A-, 90%. A lot of people, including myself at the time, thought it was a little bit too much like its predecessor, better in some ways and lacking in others, but we'll give it a spin and see what we think in 2016.
Master Iron Fist, Lieutenant Kalik and Sergeant Piridak reporting.
Proceed.
That's a great movie.
While dutifully patrolling the beach at Brighton Point as ordered, we detected a large raiding party of 40 elves invading our territory. When the time was right, we attacked.
Oh, how brave.
This is great.
The enemy fell back before the fury of our attack. We accepted our duty to defend our fair land. We killed at least half a dozen of them before they knew what was happening. The rest ran like pigs from an axe. We gave chase, and I saw with my... What is so amusing, Master?
Nothing. Continue.
Of course. As I was saying, we were chasing the goblins, shooting them in the backs because they would not stand and fight honorably.
Regrettable, but necessary.
Yes, Your Majesty. We had slain nearly all of the goblins when we saw the sea monsters approaching. At first we thought they had come to help the goblins, but it soon became clear their arrival had nothing to do with the fight on the beach. We ran for cover in the rocks.
A Lovecraftian Jules Verne twist.
Each was carrying a bag around his waist, and each was wearing a curious amulet that looked like a small black box.
What? Wait a minute. Go back.
You mean the part where I personally slew 2 elves with a single arrow?
No. After that lie. Tell me about the boxes.
They were about 1.5 inches on the side and made of smooth black metal. We couldn't get a closer look.
Those boxes sound like something out of legend. What happened next?
The sea people began to quarrel, when one group turned abruptly and started walking away down the beach. The remaining started walking the other way. In the morning, we found that one of them had shed its skin on the beach. Their tracks had washed away in the tide, so we decided to return to base and report.
Thank you for your report, Lieutenant Kalik. I am pleased to hear something interesting for once. You are promoted to captain. Assemble a search party at once and find those sea people. If you succeed, you can keep the promotion, as well as your life. Oh, and Kalik, one more thing.
Good luck.
Makes you wonder what old Archibald told his guys. Alright, here we go. Let's create a party. One of the things you'll probably notice right away is that we have more than just humans we can play with now. We got elves and dwarves and also goblins. I'm not quite sure what impact this has on the story arc, but they have, as you'd expect, bonuses and penalties for different classes and different attributes. One of the things I wish they had made clearer here is that certain skills you can only get to Grandmaster status with certain skills with certain classes. So for example, they assign the alchemy to the cleric by default, but she can only achieve mastery. You really need to assign that to your sorcerer if you want to get to grand mastery. Same thing with identify. I think the cleric can max out merchant. So just a little thing, might not make a big deal to you, but it's the sort of thing you wouldn't regret until much, much later. So I suggest taking a look at the manual. You really don't want to waste your skill points. There's never seems to be enough of them, and you probably don't want to have 2 alchemists or something like that. Another thing to consider is that some of these skills are quite expensive to learn. Although you can learn them later in the game, you're going to be spending some gold, and you don't have a lot of gold at the beginning, so it might not hurt. Here I've got leather on everybody. I've experimented with not putting leather on the dwarf, because I kind of want to put her in chain later, and it would be nice to get some other magic to start off with. But I found it's just a little too difficult to survive without anything. So I'm just going to stick with the leather. And let me see what else. Now she can learn learning, which that might sound kind of weird, but this actually gives you an experience point bonus, which I find is very useful for your spellcasters or any character that's going to have lots of skills. That'll give you a slight edge, although you have to get several points into it before you really notice a difference. If you got later on in the game, once you have plenty of cash, you can of course put that on everyone. But I'm going to give her a mind magic because that lets her cast a spell that I find useful at the beginning. And I'll put the alchemy on the sorcerer because there's some quests that you need alchemy for. Okay, then I've got my bonus points. And you can see there, the ones in red are where I'm going to be taking a penalty, or the, I think that might mean the class, or the race might have a penalty for those. I just don't like seeing anything in the red. And luck can make a big difference, bigger than you would think. It's nice to have at least one really lucky character, probably your thief, because that will get you better treasure when you open up chests and things. Plus, it helps you to evade traps, and it's just good to be lucky. You know, what can I say? So, even though there's a well, like in the previous game where you can get some more luck, I don't think there's anything wrong. It's entirely appropriate here to put some extra points into it. And you really don't want any character to be really unlucky. You just have to trust me on that one. Okay, so obviously a thief doesn't really have a need for personality, at least in this game, because that's pretty much just the cleric spell points, cleric power. However, later on he can learn some sorcerer spells, so you might want to not let the intellect get too low. Alright, I think I've about to done tweaking this. The speed, of course, is important in the game because that's how fast you can recover and attack again, cast spells again, or whatever. It's always good to have. And accuracy. Oh, crap. Oh, I didn't mean to push that button. Okay, let me skip ahead here a bit and we'll get into the game.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Emerald Island scavenger hunt is about to begin. The list of objects has been given to all contestants. As you know, the winners of the contest will be awarded title to Castle Harmony and the surrounding lands. Be careful. Emerald Island can be dangerous. Last night, 3 contestants disappeared, and we are concerned for their safety. During the contest, please be on the lookout for our missing contestants. If you find a piece of equipment in the woods, return at once with the clue. It may save their lives. There have been rumors that some kind of monster is loose on the island and may be hiding in one of the caves. If you see a cave you are unfamiliar with, don't go into it. Send someone back to town and the guards will conduct a search for you. We don't want anyone else to get hurt. And one more thing. We have... Sorry. We have reports that the monster may be a dragon. If you see it, run for your lives.
I love these intro movies. They're fantastic. Really, really fun. I love the charm there. Okay, now we're into the game. And first thing you probably want to do is turn off the little tour guide here, unless this is your first ever Might and Magic game. We'll just turn it off. I can be your guide. Your docent. Matt the docent, at your service. And it doesn't put your armor and stuff on, your weapons on by default, so, oh, check that out. That's a pretty cool thing. See, being lucky even starts at the beginning, because if you got enough luck, you'll get some better starting gear. Magic rings and some extra items. Of course, what type of weapons you get depends on what skills you learned. So that ring will come in nice indeed. 5 points is a big boost to that. I won't be able to use it right away because she doesn't have Identify yet, but we can rectify that shortly. Okay, we also need to learn the spells from the spell books. I think I forgot to put leather on my rug, but that's okay. We can always pick that up later. And I'm going to show you a nice way I like to start this game. It's very easy to screw it up big time and kill off the whole town of Emerald Island here by accident. Not to mention yourself. There's a bunch of dragonflies over there that can really terrorize you. Okay, so another factor to consider, there's a lot of factors to consider, is you get 2 companions that you can take with you, and they'll take a percentage of the gold. And they can perform various services. So, as I said before, the skill points are at a premium throughout the game. You probably won't get all the skills that you want leveled up. So one way around that is just to hire a companion that can do something for you. This guy casts Heroism. That doesn't seem like a very good choice. I guess at Master Rank that might be helpful at this stage, but you could also pick up somebody, for example, that can identify items or repair items for you, and thus you wouldn't have to bother. And you just pay a small percentage of your gold. Now, I like to look for companions that give you an experience points bonus, or ones that give you a money bonus. Some will actually make more money for you than they take. So it's kind of a no-brainer. If you don't want any other companion, you might as well pick one of those up. Okay. Just checking out my stats. As you'll recall from 6, every character can get hit at any time, so there's no tank concept in these games. So you want, instead of putting all your armor on one hero, you can spread it out. Now, what some people like to do is put all the armor on one character and just have him be the get your ass back to town character. Because as long as one person is conscious, you can make it back to an inn and be okay. But the way I like to play it, I like to spread the wealth a little bit. So you can see there, if I had 500 gold, I could learn leather. But I don't quite have enough, so I'm going to see if I can sell some things. Unfortunately, he's the armor smith, so he can't buy weapons. I have to go to the weapon guy for that. I guess that's just one of the little quirks of the Might and Magic series. They like to have everything separated. There's guilds for every different magic school. Yeah, there's separate weapons, and there's separate armor place, separate items in a potion store. Sometimes you just wish you could find a super Walmart, stock up on everything. But on a positive side, at least for me, I guess there's a negative to this as well. But you can't go in. You notice that you're not really go inside the buildings. You just get to a little animated screen. And some of the critics, I don't know why, but they really trashed the game for that reason. I don't really get it. Who cares, right? And of course, there are dungeons and castles we can explore, but it doesn't really make any difference. I actually like that. Speeds up the game. Okay, here's that well that will give you extra luck. So I suppose you could just, again, make one of your characters really lucky. But maybe it's not the best way to play, but I like to spread the wealth. It's usually a good idea to save the game right before you drink from a well or from a barrel. Not that they usually won't, some of them will, but most of them won't harm you, but it's just that you might want to save it first so you can make sure that the right character gets the bonus. Again, it wouldn't make sense to give a big personality bonus to my thief, for example. Looking at my quest log. So we got a scavenger hunt, and we need to find those missing adventurers. And once you do the quest, we'll get some experience points and some gold, and we'll be able to pick up those skills that we didn't get before. So there's what I was talking about before. So you just get this little picture here of the inside of the building and the menu on the right. Again, I'm fine with this. I would never even think to criticize this. I was a little surprised at some of the reviews I read from back in the day. I guess, I don't know what was going on, what game they were comparing this to. I guess maybe Daggerfall would let you go inside the buildings. But it doesn't bother me at all. Alright, so here's my little Matt's guide to the start of the game. I want to get us off of this first island, and then I'll show you some other things. But I think by the end of this, you ought to have a pretty good idea of whether you want the game or not, and also, I think, a frustration-free way to start off. Because believe me, man, it is easy to screw up here, even at the very beginning of the game. It can just feel hopeless. So let's do this way. So I'm going to actually go inside the dragon's lair first. And you might think this is a suicidal move, but actually that dragon is doing what I would be doing. He's focusing on the rats that are conveniently sprinkled in this dungeon here. So really, if I can just gather up this loot and get out of here before he kills those rats, then I can have a lot of loot and the quest items and get some experience points. And I think he's noticed me. Let's get the heck out of here. So there we go. So now I've got some items. Now some of these are not identified yet, but if nothing else, I can sell those. And then there's a couple of quest items here, and I can turn those in for gold and experience points. So a little tense. You might get tripped up in that cave and get blasted by the dragon. He'll kill you if you manage to aggro him. But I was able to get in and out, no problem, and in pretty good shape here. Now, since even if you can't identify something, what you can do, unless you're worried about a cursed item, and I'm pretty sure there's cursed items in the game, you can put it on, turn the stats on, and put it on and see if you see any change in the stats. I'm not sure if this will tell you everything, but you could at least see if you get an armor class boost. Later on, of course, I want to identify these, but I'm not really worried about them being cursed. Another little trick you can do is go to the store and try to sell it, and if they give you more money than you expected, it's probably got a nice boost on it. If they don't want to give you any cash, it's probably just a common item, so that's another sort of indirect way to tell. Alright, so I think what I want to do now is, let's see, there we go, is turn these quests in, then I can get some gold and experience, and then I'll see about training. So let's see, what do we have there? The longbow. And let's see, missing contestants. Alright, so we gave him that little scroll. Now you notice that my character's leveled up there. That's what when it's green like that, that means you're leveled up. So we can go train, and every time you train, you'll get some skill points, in addition to, I guess, some boost to your health and whatnot.
Need some training?
It costs a little bit of gold. It seems to be, this could be just my bad memory, but it seems like it's cheaper to level than it was in the previous game. I remember it being a big deal in 6 to have enough money to train, but I seem to be doing okay this time. Okay, there we go. I can learn leather. Go ahead and put that leather piece on him. Now that boosted up his armor class nicely. So one of the things I like about the game, you really have to think about that money situation. You know, just like in real life, you don't have enough money to do all the things you really need to do, right? So one way you could play would be to focus on merchant skill at the beginning, I suppose. Another thing you can do is steal with your thief. Some of the guides and forums I was looking at suggested that you just max out your stealing, and then you can pick people's pockets and steal from the shops and get all kinds of fantastic items and never hurt for gold. I don't know, I never would, I probably wouldn't play that way. I find if you do the merchant skill and maybe get a companion to help you make money, it won't be that big of a deal. And of course later on you'll have plenty of cash if you play your cards right. More about that in a minute. Okay, and this is something else that's left over from 6, but you want a bow on everybody. As soon as you can get a bow on everybody, that's going to make your life easier. It doesn't even hurt to put to get up to expert on everybody. They can learn the expert. So don't think that bows are just for archers. You know, this is a first-person shooter engine, basically, and a ranged attack is always a good idea. If you can kill monsters before they get to you, even better. That way you don't take any damage, of course. And some of these battles, you're going to need all of the advantages you can muster. We're about to get to these dragonflies. Identify a monster is a skill that will teach you about... You can right-click on the monsters and see how many health points they have and if they have any resistances. I don't really find it all that useful, so I don't usually bother with that. Identify item, though, of course, that's going to be useful. And the repair item is actually very more useful than you might think. Once an item is broken, it's useless. And it seems like it loves to happen right in the deepest part of a dungeon. So once that happens, you got to go back out and get it repaired. Big pain in the butt. But if you have repair item high enough, then you can just do it yourself. You know, I never found myself in a situation where I was thinking, man, I've got too many skill points. I don't know what to put them in. You know, you're going to find plenty of ways to spend those skill points. Okay, so I'm going to try to get all the easy experience and gold I can by doing these the scavenger hunt first. I'm trying to avoid that western side of the island because that's where all the dragonflies are. Alright, so there's a trick here with the red potion. Let's see, blue potions. So he knows how to make blue potions, but not red ones. Just about any blue herb. So I need to... I think there's a trick to him. I'm trying to remember. It has been about a decade, but there's some... Oh, there's those dragonflies. So a little tip here. Don't just hit the A key and the S key to attack when it's like this, because you can accidentally attack the guards there, and then you'll be fighting them. And that wouldn't be cool. So just remember, when there's some allies in view, just click with the mouse instead of the A and S key. Okay, I think I need to probably make a red potion. Let's see. Yeah, so there's the dragonflies. And what you want to do here is just get close enough to get their attention, a couple at a time, hopefully. And then you can enter turn-based mode by hitting enter. A little hand pops up in the top right. And this way everybody gets a turn, all the monsters take their turns, all your guys take their turns, and then you can move a little bit forward and back. So I would suggest, this is the part here where you really, you have to be patient. If you get in a hurry, you're just going to pull way too many of these dragonflies, and they'll, even if you run away, they'll go into the town and start killing everyone. Which, you might be okay with that, but I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me. So I just take my time with this. Now, since everybody has a bow, and plus I have some spells I can launch, you should be able to kill several of them before they get to you. Once they get in range like this, though, you'll be using your melee weapons. And the little bastards always seem to go for your weakest party member. They love to attack my cleric and my mage. So you can look up and down. By the way, I don't know if it's been obvious up to this point, but you can't... There's no mouse look. So you have to control this entirely with the arrow keys. And I think it's page up and page down maybe to look up and down. So it's something you get used to pretty quickly, but it can be kind of jarring if you're coming to this from a later game and you're like trying to move around with WASD and the mouse look. There might be some mods out there to help you, and of course you can change your key layout. But I just, you know, it's designed to be played with the arrow keys and the up and down, so that's how I play. You get used to it. Okay, let's see. I think I'm in pretty good shape now to learn some more skills. Let's see, what do I... There we go. So what I need to do is join these guilds, because if I don't join the guild, then I can't buy any spells and I can't learn that skill. So since she doesn't have air magic, which is very important actually, I need to go to the guild, get the guild membership, and then I'll be able to come here and learn the air magic.
You don't have enough gold.
I need 950 gold for that. just to learn the skill, and then I'll have to buy the spell books. So that's pretty expensive. You can see now why I was saying it might not be a bad idea to get these magic schools for your bonus skills, because those are 950 gold, and you can pick up the leather for only 500 gold. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I get money for killing these dragonflies, and they tend to respawn pretty rapidly, so depending on how patient you are, you could spend quite some time on this Emerald Island just taking out waves of dragonflies. I'm not going to do that here, just going to move on, but it's an option, I suppose. So you can see now is where the bows are really showing their value. I killed so many of these before they got to me. And there's also, if you're having a really tough time with these fire dragonflies, there is a fire resistance pedestal out in front of that. I think it's in front of the dragon cave, if I'm not mistaken. I could be. Anyway, somewhere on the island there's one. You get some fire resistance and come back. But you can also just put it into turn-based mode and heal up your guys when they get a little low. You'll notice also that I can't see, my radar there is not showing me the monsters and the fallen corpses. And I need a spell called Wizard Eye, which is an air spell. Pretty much essential. So that's why I'm trying to get to the... that's why I'm trying to get enough money to get that skill in the spell book here at the beginning, because it's a... I feel like I'm naked out here in the woods without my Wizard Eye. So I want to get that quick. Alright, killing dragonflies. Can you imagine shooting a dragonfly at long range with a bow and arrow? You'd have to be pretty damn good. Alright, I think 667. My characters are kind of getting low. Oh, there's a haste pedestal. Haste is pretty cool, but the problem is that when it expires, your characters will all become weak. And then you'll have to either rest or cast a spell on them to cure their weakness. It's a little bit of tedium, but I guess since I'm going to have to go to an inn anyway here in a little bit to recharge my health and spell points, it doesn't seem bad just to go ahead and use it. Alright, so again, really the biggest challenge here is not getting ahead of yourself and trying to take on too many dragonflies at one time. You can easily do it if you just stick to the tried and true method of small groups. You can see how many there are there. And I just put it into turn-based mode and then hold down the S or the A key. And bada boom. It's kind of like popping those little bubbles on a sheet of bubble wraps. That's kind of how it feels to do this. Which, I don't know, I guess your mileage may vary. I kind of like these games where you can sort of relax and just mow down large fleets of dragonflies. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, why is this fun? I don't know. It just is, though. Okay, go ahead and top off my thief there. Finish off these dragonflies, and then after that I'll be able to loot all these, and then there will be a chest up there. Hopefully with some good items in it. Just don't forget to get to that luck well and get as much luck as you can before you start opening up chests. And I don't think it's going to happen here at the beginning, but eventually you'll have a problem with booby-trapped chests, trapped chests, and even with an expert level disarm on your thief, you'll still be tripping those occasionally. And that's about the only way you're going to die, probably, if you're a careful player. You know, if you open up a chest, that can kill a character that's not at full health. So you probably want to focus on getting your perception skill up and your disarm traps up. That needs to be high priority. Of course, your thief is the one to do that. So anytime you get an extra skill point, I like to give it to my thief so he can work on that disarming and perception. Okay, have I got them all? I think I've got all of the dragonflies, maybe. You might miss a few corpses, but it's no big deal. Once we get the Wizard Eye, then we come back and you'll be able to see them. This is looking pretty good, though. I think I got them all. So let's go see what kind of loot we get, and I'm going to save it here. Now, if you want to cheat, apparently you can save, open up the chest, see if you like the stuff. If you don't, reload, and you get different stuff. At least that's what I read somewhere. I've never tried that. It seems a little like cheating to me. So I just go with what I find. It's not really great stuff, but of course we can always sell it. Those scrolls, you can't learn the spells from them, but you can cast them. You probably want to sell most of them, but it's good to hang on to a few just in case you get into a situation where you're out of spell points and you really need a couple of spells to make the difference. There's another dragonfly. The guy sort of popped out of nowhere. I've got some chain mail. Now that's something I'll have to train into, the chain. And some people play with chain on their knights. The cleric, some people like leather better, chain better. There's plate. There's pluses and minuses to it. I usually put the plate on my knight and the chain on the cleric. So in other words, I wouldn't put a lot of points into chain on my knight. Those would just be wasted if you decide later to go on to plate. Just something to consider. Again, some people actually like the chain better because you can attack faster. I haven't done the math on it, but I guess I can see where that would be a viable option. Okay, there's a little herb out there. And another chest. Oh, see? I'm really noticing the difference that a lucky thief makes. I mean, when I played this game before, I think I had maybe 2 items in this chest, and they all sucked. Now I'm getting boots and gauntlets and cloaks and rings. And the cool thing about all of those items is that anybody can wear them. You don't need any training to wear a gauntlet. And another thing I love about the game is that each character can wear 6 rings. Thank you. Thank you. I hate these games that make out like you can only wear 1 ring or 2 rings. I mean, I've got 10 fingers here. And, you know, if I could wear a ring of fire resistance and a ring of water resistance and a ring of body resistance, hell, I would put them all on. I don't see any reason. I mean, would you be like, you know, it looks a little tacky to have all those rings? I don't care what it looks like, you know. Necklaces, say, you can only wear 1 necklace, unfortunately. It would be pretty cool if you could pull a Mr. T and have like 12 necklaces on. You know, what the hell, why not? But I'll live with the 6 rings. Okay, so let's see. Come back to this guy. I think I can just use my herbalism here to mix up a potion. There we go. That's it. So you have to have the potion in your inventory first. And then it gets my fancy hat. Looks kind of like my bard hat, doesn't it? Okay, she somehow... I don't know how she got... Oh, they're all weak. Oh, that's that haste spell. So that haste wore off. Now all my guys are weak. And I either have to train. I think when you train, that'll get rid of all those effects. Let's try that. If that doesn't work, I can always go to the inn or just rest. Of course, keep in mind when you rest, you'll use up your food. Not a big deal here in town, but if you're in the bottom of a dungeon and you're out of food, then you're not going to like that situation because you won't be able to recover your health and spell points. Okay, let's see. I think when I train, it should... Yeah, there we go. So that cleaned up all that weakness. So I can save myself the hassle. Okay, so what are we up to? What, level 4? So already at level 4, haven't died. No townspeople have been injured. And I'm finally got some money now. I can learn my air magic. Let's get this Wizard Eye. Essential spell, in my opinion. All of this stuff is great. The Feather Fall can be more useful than you'd think, too, because sometimes you are at the top of a mountain and you're looking down there and you can see something, but of course you'll die if you just jump down. Featherfall can get you down there and plus save you some time. One of the great moments of any of these Might and Magic games is when you get the Flight spell. Then you can just soar above everything and you can avoid all of the trash mobs and you move really quickly and it's just an awesome moment. There's also a portal, a Lloyd's Beacon, just all sorts of cool ways to get around, but unlike a lot of lesser games, this game actually works it into the magic system, which I think is pretty cool. Makes you feel really good when you get up enough skill points to be able to get those, and you really see the impact it makes on your gameplay, quality of life, if you will. So that's just the great thing about these games to me is that there's so much to do, and the skills that you pick up are going to make a really noticeable difference. You're not just getting a little bit more damage here and there, but it's actually changing the way you play the game, which to me that's the goal. Okay, now you can already see the difference a few levels has made there. I'll probably be able to clear all these off. And you can see the radar working there. The red dots, of course, are the enemies. Yellow dots are corpses. And it's a wonderful sight to see that big old pile of corpses. You can loot all that and get some gold and maybe even some magic items, depending on your luck score. So we're having great fun here, right? Back to these dragonflies, but I think after this it'll be time to go into the dungeon. We do have a little mini dungeon on this island, and we'll kill some of my favorite creatures to kill. I think you know what those are. Alright, so at the top of this waterfall, get a fire resistance totem and go to the entrance. I love that graphic there. The Temple of the Moon. Squeaking noises. What could be making those squeaking noises? Alright, it's kind of dark in here. I don't know if I have torchlight. But I can sort of see looks like some bats up there. Giant bats. Those are sort of like rats with wings. Giant bats. You got to watch some of these things. They'll poison you or curse you, all kinds of effects like that. Yet another reason to have a good luck score, as well as some resistance. And I haven't really been making a point of it here, but I think it's a great idea to have a lot of resistance of every type on your cleric. Because the last thing you want to have is for her to get paralyzed or stunned or something and be unable to heal. Some of the guides I looked at suggested you don't even need a cleric because you can get the high level alchemy and use the healing potions instead, but I don't know. I'm just one of those potion collectors, potion hoarders. You know, there should be a show called a Potion Hoarder. You'd see me on there looking like a fool with thousands of healing potions and dead characters because I was too stingy to use one. So that's not the route I would take, but it's an option. Okay, now I know that somewhere in this dungeon there are some of my favorite critters. I know they're around here because my whiskers are twitching in anticipation. And I think, yes, there we go. The giant rat. Oh, man. Well, if that doesn't sell you on the game, I don't know what will. I've been thinking a lot lately about stories in games, narratives, and the role that plays. And I'm kind of working with a theory here that the reason that it seems like younger guys especially seem to be really kind of fixated on that aspect of a game is that they've been raised on Japanese role-playing games. And it seems to me, just from I don't play a whole lot of them, but the ones I've played and seen, there does seem to be a lot more emphasis in those games on the story and all this sort of dramatic stuff that takes place between characters and their families. And it's very kind of anime-like, I guess a manga influence maybe. And you can really see it during this time period, because you think about what else was available. At this time, of course, the big game, Japanese role-playing game, the big console game was Final Fantasy VII. I assume you probably played it, but if you haven't, just look at some screenshots, maybe look at some videos here on YouTube, and you can see how radically different that game is from this. And it's almost a stretch to call them both role-playing games. I mean, that to me is where you really start to see a big divergence. You know, this game is really a hybrid first-person shooter, computer role-playing game, kind of a mix of the older Might and Magics or Wizardry with the Doom. Most PC gamers back then were into first-person shooters, probably more so even than they are now. And that was the reason why this was exciting. It had that first-person shooter 3D interface. Now, of course, the other two games that married those two genres was Daggerfall, came out in '96, and of course the Ultima Underworld series, So those were both heavily influential, of course, and important games, but they only have you controlling that single character, so it's maybe even closer to that first-person shooter model. Whereas this, to me, feels more like a true hybrid. They're really trying to maintain that tabletop sort of group of adventurers feel to this. And it works when you can just suspend your disbelief a little bit, but of course it does seem a little weird to think about sometimes. I remember there's a scene, I think in the 9th one, where your characters are walking across a wire. And you're sort of wondering, so these 4 guys are side by side and they're walking across this wire, how's that supposed to work? So, it's sometimes it just doesn't, it seems a little clunky, or, what's the word for it? It's kind of hard to imagine this taking place. So we've got, on the consoles, Final Fantasy VII. On the PCs, you could play Daggerfall. You could play the Ultima Underworld series. And we're not done, because we haven't even mentioned the other big, huge RPG on the market. Of course, Diablo. Huge game. Of course, the whole action RPG. It's I don't think it seems to have died down a lot since then, but I remember at the time there was just all these action RPGs, and suffice it to say, a game like this had a lot of competition, and to some people it just felt sort of antiquated. And it's not, I wouldn't say it was direct competition, but of course you also had the Ultima Online. That came out in 97. And EverQuest, I believe, wouldn't come out until after this game. I don't have the timeline in front of me, but that seems about right to me, thinking back. So you could have, if you had the money, you could play Ultima Online. But I think it's kind of sad, really. I mean, I would pay just about any, if there were Kickstarters back then, to keep these Might and Magic games coming, I would gladly have contributed to those campaigns. It'd be nice if we had 15, 16, 20 Might and Magic games. I'm the kind of guy who would have played through all of them, even if they didn't update the graphics. That's never, as you know, if you watch this show, I'm not a big graphics guy. That's not a big deal for me. I'm more into the gameplay. But just there was too much competition, and these guys, they probably didn't really do enough to set this game apart from the predecessor. I'd love to get a chance to interview John Van Canningham, because my guess is what the original idea was that they would make this great engine for 6 and then just fire or lay off all their programmers, engine programmers anyway, and then just hire a bunch of artists and writers, dungeon designers on the cheap, right? Just keep churning them out the way SSI did with the Gold Box games. But with all that competition and the rapid technological leaps that seem to be happening everywhere, they just couldn't keep up. And at the end of it, it seemed like this game was almost outdated at the time of release. A lot of the contemporary reviews say basically that it looks sort of like 6. It's not really. Why not just play 6? And there was so much other stuff going on, I think it kind of got lost in the shuffle. And they didn't do themselves any favors with the 8th and the 9th game, especially, because those were just cash-ins at best, I think I would say. I remember by the 8th game, I think I finished it, but I was really questioning, why am I even bothering with this? It just has a very rushed, sort of cheap feel to it. And I would say, to me, the 6th game is the high point. The 7th game is just about as good as the 6th game, and it does have a few things I like better. I'll show you one of those in a second, but you got to give old John Van credit. Even the first Might and Magic game had tons of competition. What was that? That was, of course, you had the Ultima series and the Bard's Tale series, and all of those had to compete with all that, and they do have their devotees. Some really impressive games that kind of get lost. People talk more about the Ultima series, for example, and Wizardry, of course, than they do about Might and Magic. But I think they're all great games. I was very pleased to see that 10th game come out, the Legacy. Of course, that was more of a zine influence, I guess you would say. It had that sort of grid-based movement popularized or reintroduced, I guess, by the Grimrock, Legend of Grimrock, great game series. But I was a little disappointed with that, because I really wanted to see return to this, the 6 engine, with this smooth movement. I mean, we already have Legend of Grimrock, and there's some sort of other games in that with that setup now too. But we don't see, other than Jay Barnson's Parade Night series, I don't know of that many games like that have this sort of free movement anymore. So I would have much rather have seen that Legacy game had this kind of engine. And of course, they could make it look a lot better nowadays. I really was just kind of baffled by their decision to have the grid-based movement, because really, to me, this 6 and 7 really aren't about puzzles, which is where that grid-based movement really shines. Okay, I think that's probably far enough here. Let's move ahead, because I want to show you my favorite addition to the game, which is a little card game based on Magic the Gathering. Alright, so it takes some doing, but eventually you get a quest to go into the White Cliff Caves, or White Cliff Cavern, something along those lines. And you get this deck of cards. And then once you get those cards and complete the quest, then you can go to the tavern and play a little game called Arcomage. And it's everybody that plays this game remembers the Arcomage. It's a really fun minigame. I mean, it turned out to be way better than I think anyone expected. And it seems like that's really where they lavished all of their love. So some people criticize this game for not having as good of dungeons as the previous game. Some of the areas aren't all that inspired, but everybody loves the Arcomage. It's kind of fun for me that Blizzard stole all their thunder with the Diablo series, and of course, most people that, if you're not playing Magic the Gathering, you're probably playing their Hearthstone series, right? But here we have a Magic the Gathering clone, a pretty well done one, built into the Might and Magic engine. And I think most of the people I talked to about this game, this is what they remember. They remember Arcomage. I was trying to think too. I'm not a huge Magic the Gathering fan. I mean, I've of course played it before, but I was just looking up some history about it. Apparently it came out in 1993, but I would say it probably took a couple years before it really got out into the general gaming public. I mean, I don't remember seeing anybody play Magic the Gathering until I got to college, which I was in 1995. Of course, then it seemed like everybody was into it at that point. But this is what I'm curious about. I wonder how many people played this game, Might and Magic 7, that hadn't ever played Magic the Gathering before, or didn't even know it existed. That would have been curious if this was their introduction to these what do you call Magic the Gathering? A card-based role-playing game? Wizard Combat, whatever. Anyway, I'm kind of curious about that. And obviously, the folks at New World Computing were all into it. No, it's obviously not a direct clone. It doesn't even look like Magic the Gathering, but you can clearly see the influence. Now, they did release this as a standalone game in 1999. It's Arcomage. I think that was had an online component. Yeah, you could play it over the internet. So this really took off. I don't think it really ever got to be as popular as Magic the Gathering, or their Heroes series, but there for a while, a lot of people were talking about Arcomage, and it was a fun time to be a gamer. Anyway, folks, there you have it for Blood and Honor. Thank you very much for watching. And that's all for this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It's kind of a shame. I don't know. I used to have a Might and Magic 7 in the box somewhere, but I guess I must have lost it at some point. I still have the manuals and the CD-ROMs for it, but I guess it got lost in the move or something. Anyway, it's a shame. If you happen to have an extra copy, I'd love to have that thing. Anyway, as always, I want to thank you very, very much for your support of this show. Really awesome of you guys to support the show. Remember, if you want to support it, you can really do so quite easily. Just go to the Patreon site in the show notes. $1 a show, all I ask, and you're keeping these episodes in production. So thank you very much. I should have Joe and Hannah back on to talk about their Copper Dreams Kickstarter project next. Also got the author of a book on Gary Gygax in the works, as well as the Amiga Bedrooms to Billions documentary team I'd like to get on soon as well. So in short, lots of great stuff coming up here on Matt Chat, and it's all thanks to you and those who have stepped up to the Patreon site or PayPal. Or you know what, you want to support the show and you want to play Might and Magic, go to that link in the show notes to the GOG affiliate link, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. You can pick up the Might and Magic series, and a small kickback will go to this show. So you can support the show any of those ways, or just tell people about it. Whatever you do, I really appreciate it, and thank you. All right, what about that news from the Matt Cave? Not a whole lot of news this week. I wanted to kind of get this episode out. It's already late. Sorry about that. But I did find something cool. This was Adam sent this in on the Milky Way Incorporated Facebook group. And I thought this was weirdly relevant, right? It's pretty timely. So IGN can reveal that Lionhead, you remember they went defunct, or they went out of business a while back. Well, apparently they were secretly developing a free-to-play Fable branded digital card game called Fable Fortune. They were working on that for 18 months before the closure. Now it's headed to Kickstarter. So they're calling themselves Flaming Fowl Studios. These are refugees, I guess you could say, Lionhead veterans Craig Oman, Mike West, and Marcus Lynn. Microsoft has given the team its backing to continue to use the Fable license, but now without a publisher behind it, they need crowdfunding. So they're trying to raise a very specific amount of money here, $365,385 for this. They've already raised $40,500, and they got 27 days left to go. So Fable Fortune, Fable-themed collectible card game featuring co-op and PvP modes set in the whimsical world of Albion. So thought I'd pass that, or let you guys know about that for those that are into collectible card games. Looks pretty cool. It kind of makes you wonder if maybe an Arcomage Kickstarter would work, how that would fare. But anyway, go check it out. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. All right, so what about that ale of the week? Well, this week I got something fun. This is a Dang! That's good butterscotch root beer, gluten-free, caffeine-free. It's the original Dang. Carbonated water, sugar, natural flavors, citric acid. This is brewed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin by Imperial Flavor. Oh, it's bottled for them. So who actually brewed this? DangThat'sGood.com. Not seeing the name of the brewer on here anywhere. But anyway, who could pass up a drink called Dang? I actually got this on my little trip down to Louisiana. We went to the Walmart Museum. And they have this sort of vintage shop there, and they had these and a couple other vintage sodas for sale there, so I picked a few up. Anyway, let's get this Dang open and see what it's all about. All right, so I got some of this Dang butterscotch root beer here in the rather excellent drinking gourd. It smells really good. You can definitely smell the butterscotch. You probably smell that even more than the root beer, that sort of anise, licorice-like aroma. It just smells like a big bowl of butterscotch candies, which I always love those. Don't you love those little butterscotch candies? Now I get to drink those. Isn't that exciting? Anyway, let's give this a taste here. I gotta say, that is dang flavorful. You taste a lot of butterscotch, a little bit of a root beer. It does kind of taste like you had maybe a good quality root beer that you somehow melted some of those butterscotch candies and cooled them off. And it tastes exactly the way that it sounds. Butterscotch root beer. A little bit on the sweet side, but you still get some good flavors there. I'll try it again. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. It's kind of interesting, those flavors. You don't really expect to taste that much of a butterscotch flavor in a root beer, but you definitely do that. Taste that here. Very refreshing. It's not a very heavy drink. Probably just more sweet and buttery. It's probably the pronounced flavors there. A little bit of a root beer, anise-like flavor, but mostly just the butterscotch. Yeah, quite tasty. I will say this is definitely on the sweet side, so guys, if you don't like a real sweet, sugary beverage, you might want to stay away. But if you don't mind that and you like butterscotch, hey, you're not going to go wrong with this. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 on my drinking horn scale. It advertises itself as a butterscotch root beer. That's exactly what it tastes like. It's exactly what you would expect, and it's quite good. So, 5 out of 5 drinking horns on the dang butterscotch root beer. All right, let's wrap this up with a quotation. I was looking for quotes about cards, and I found this one, and this one's just, I mean, I love this quotation. It's really good. It goes something like this. Life is like a game of cards. The hand you are dealt is determinism. The way you play it is free will. A little quotation there by Jawaharlal Nehru. See you guys next week.
True love is the greatest thing in the world. Except for nice MLT, mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich when the mutton is nice and lean and the tomatoes are ripe. They're so perky. I love that.